It feels like forever since we got any Breath of the Wild 2 news, any Breath of the Wild 2 leaks, so heck yeah for this video, because we got some juicy Breath of the Wild 2 leaks. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switchforce. Hit that like button if you're excited for this little game Nintendo sometimes occasionally talks about called the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, and let me know what you think of these leaks in the comments down below. And does this leak link Breath of the Wild 2 to the upcoming June Direct? Will this mean that we get to see the game and maybe some huge reveals of features and even title in the coming weeks? We'll touch on that as well. Now, I need to preface this video with the grain of salt comment of it's always the same, take this with a grain of salt, right? It looks pretty legit, but as always, this is a leak, so you never really know. But I'm so eager for Breath of the Wild 2, and there are two main points here, and both of them have awesome implications, so let's eat that salt together. Let's be salty friends, and let's dive in. This was posted over on the Chinese equivalent of Twitter, and it's posted by a woman who is a 3D animator on the game, or at least she says she is. She says she's been working at one of Nintendo's contractors in Tokyo since last March when she started on the project, and she's done some animations for this title and knows some things about the game. Now, there's some interesting points, and we'll sort of start like smallest to biggest here. The first is that she says she did some animation for the first time that you pick up the slate, like the Sheikah slate from Breath of the Wild 1. Now, this is interesting because Zelda has the Sheikah slate at the end of Breath of the Wild 1. So the conversation instantly turned to, oh my gosh, is Zelda going to be playable? Is Zelda picking up the Sheikah slate? Is she giving it back to Link? Is this a flashback? What's going on? Now, if you recall, the Sheikah slate was kind of like the Wii U gamepad, but it did have plenty of uses in the game mechanically. So would they bring it back? It seems like the arm is going to be the Sheikah slate replacement, but maybe it does have some purpose in terms of lore or connecting the two games, or maybe some other character picks it up. That's the smallest piece, though, and one for you to kind of just toss over and think, like, how are they going to use the Sheikah slate? The next is that she says she did some animations for a roaring dragon and a flying dragon. Now, dragons aren't that unfamiliar to the Legend of Zelda franchise, so it's not all that crazy, but the person that posted this is saying something about perhaps we have an idea on the title of the game. So I'm wondering if maybe it's dragon focused. What if there was a big to-do about dragons in Breath of the Wild 2? That's the reason they haven't revealed the title, and that is going to be a big part of this new adventure. Whole bunch of different dragons. We had divine beasts in the first game. What if this time there's a bunch of legendary dragons? All of a sudden it sounds like a Pokemon game, but hey, that might not be a bad thing. I would take a bunch of roaring, flying, different elemental dragons in this game. That could be kind of sick, especially if eventually you could ride them, since this game is all about sky and ground. I don't know, ground dragons, sky dragons, it sounds legit. And also in the Breath of the Wild art style, gimme dragons. That brings us to the biggest piece of this puzzle yet, and it's about a feature of the game. So like, on the slight chance that this is real, if this person is true, this is big, right? This is a big deal, because the first Breath of the Wild did not have a New Game Plus. Yes, it had Master Mode, which made things harder and more challenging, but it was a separate save file. It's not like you were taking your Breath of the Wild game and then replaying the game. Not only, though, is there a New Game Plus, supposedly, in Breath of the Wild 2, which is big, but also Link looks different after you beat the game. Now, this is really interesting to me. I think there's two ways you go with this. I mean, first off, New Game Plus, really cool, right? A chance to kind of fully develop Breath of the Wild 2 even more, play it for years until Breath of the Wild 3. We've seen like mods and stuff take New Game Plus into Breath of the Wild 1, but there's no like actual legit way to do it. And this would be a really nice feature, especially if the world is really big, if there's a lot of different side quests, a lot of fun you can have, and a bunch of different abilities and ways you can upgrade your Link. Now, the second half, Link looks different at the end of the game after you beat it. Like, I don't know, this is translated, remember? So like, this is coming with some sort of like rough translation. And I take it like two different ways. One, okay, Link just looks different. Like, he gets a new outfit, his arm returns back to normal. To me, that's like the more likely one, right? Like, they've shown so much of his arm. We know his arm doesn't get crazy after you beat the game. That would be silly, because the focus of the trailers thus far or at least one of the big focuses, has been on that arm that's doing all sorts of wiggly stuff. So maybe it's that his arm returns to normal, and then in New Game Plus, I don't know, he accesses those powers some other way. That would kind of make sense to me story-wise, like, oh, they fix his arm and restore Hyrule. But the other way I could interpret this, especially with a rough translation, is that Link looks different because you get to play somebody else. Now, this is a massive part of Breath of the Wild 2's discourse right now. Will we be able to play as Zelda? Will there be co-op? How are they going to expand this game and make it feel like a sequel? You know, it seems like they've been teasing Zelda being more and more central for so long now. Cue all the memes and jokes about you play as Zelda because it's Legend of Zelda. But that would be a massive step in the cool direction to me. I would love a playable Zelda. I would love 2 playable characters, even if they're in separate eras, even if they're in separate worlds. I think that'd be so cool. And then you get so many awesome lonely co-op moments where you're using Link to help Zelda and Zelda to help Link, and it's like co-op with yourself, which is so great if you don't have friends, or if you just want to play a really cool puzzle game, and it would bring back a lot of interesting dungeon mechanics and elements to The Legend of Zelda. So perhaps Link looks different because you play as a different character, like you play as Zelda in New Game Plus, or my pipe dream, you play as Boy Ganon. I don't know how that factors in, I don't know how it would work, but it would be sick, playing as the villain, but really like young villain wasn't so evil after all. I don't know. I think it would just be, just chew on that for a bit. Think if it's a good idea. More than likely it is the former, right? But Link just looks different. But the way that they describe it, it's more of a monumental shift than just, oh, a new, special Master Sword set of armor. It's something is different about him. I don't know if it's a hair thing, right? Because he's got the hair going on. So does he hair it up? Does he cut the hair? Does his arm change? Or is it something bigger? Now, if you ask me, like, as much as I want it, and as awesome as it would be, I don't think Nintendo is probably going to do 2 playable characters. I don't think they'll allow playable Zelda. It would be great. It would be a super evolution forward for the franchise, but it seems like such a departure, and it seems like it's something we all want so much. And so when that happens, you're usually like, okay, this is a pipe dream, not necessarily reality. Breath of the Wild 2 will still be super cool. Lots of new abilities, lots of new areas, the sky thing, and clearly like seems like some element of time, right? Like some difference in time. So we'll have to see all the features that they do pack in. Unfortunately, I don't believe a second playable character will be one of them, but hey, I'd love to be surprised. New Game Plus and Dragons, though, is the big talk here. And both of those things would be super welcome. And this would sort of be the biggest like gameplay / like feature set leak we've had thus far. And if it is to be extrapolated, like dragons are a feature focal point of this game and could even be in the title, that would be super nifty. Now, this has also made people think that perhaps we're going to see this game at the Nintendo Direct in June, whatever that might be, whenever that might be. And I don't know that there's any correlation, okay? This person supposedly leaking this stuff and the game being shown, I don't know that there's any tie. I mean, unless they're working on like a trailer or a demo for a Treehouse segment this month, they're just kind of like spilling the beans. And people have said like it's a dumb spill because this is very specific, that it's, a woman working at a contractor in Tokyo, working on the dragons, and the picking up the Sheikah Slate animation started last March. Like you could really pinpoint this person. So that makes you kind of question like, is it actually a leak? But crazier stuff has happened. People have made leaks like this before, excited people. It's not like she's an executive, she's working at a contractor. So maybe she's like, who cares? I'll just go do animations for a different game if this doesn't pan out. I don't know, but I don't think there's any correlation. I still don't think we'll see Breath of the Wild 2 at this show. I'm just trying to prep you that it seems more like a September big blowout for a spring 2023 release, barring any, hopefully no delays. Fingers crossed, but maybe it will show up this June. Either way, New Game Plus would be sick. Link looking different is interesting, and Dragons, I think, would be super darn cool. So let me know what you think about all of this. Again, grain of salt, right? It could just be a bunch of nonsense, but it's too interesting, too cool, and I'm too excited for Breath of the Wild 2 not to share it with you. So let me know your take. Everybody, have a fantastic rest of your day. Make sure you're staying safe, staying healthy, staying happy, staying positive out there, and until next time, bring us Breath of the Wild 2. Switch Force, out.